Hello, good peeps. How are we? Welcome to the Court of the Jester. As usual, subscribe, buy me a coffee, become a warrior teacher, all the usual stuff. Here, I've got something interesting from Chile. Chile, not the dish. This is way off my base, really, sort of. But let's have a look and see, because I think this is interesting. Chile becomes first country to pass neuro rights law. Here's a conversation that's going to be the sort of thing that you'd say on trigonometry at the end, isn't it? What are we not talking about that we should be talking about? This, guys, this, right? Constantine, right? This. Chile became the first country in the world to protect neuro rights after the Chamber of Deputies approved Wednesday an amendment to the Chilean constitution. The bill is expected to be signed into law by their president soon. The amendment to the Chilean constitution aims at defining mental identity for the first time in history as a non-manipulable right to protect it against technological advancements in neurosciences and artificial intelligence. Now, this is very interesting to me because we are seeing extraordinary things happening with technological advancements, particularly in neuroscience and in artificial intelligence, although it's not the promising thing that people think it is. If you go to ChatGPT and ask it stuff, it lies all the time. Can't tell the truth because it's so biased, especially when you ask it about ridiculous things like gender identity. And I asked one of the, this AI generate an image, right? Generate an image. And I wanted a picture of some trans people by the water. And all it gave me was a bunch of chrysalises. Death head to hot box, chrysalises from sight of the lambs, stood by a river. These all piled up. Weirdos. See, so AI is really peculiar in that respect, in that it still has to be programmed by us. You get to go on ChatGPT and have a go and see how you get on. Right. So the bill sets out to protect the right to mental privacy, personal identity, the free will of thought, equitable access to technologies that increase human capacities, and protection against discrimination. Now that's interesting, right? That's a maloo. Let's just read that one again, because I want you to get your heads around this and start giving me what you think in the comments, please, if you would, and on Twitter. The bill sets out to protect the right to mental privacy, personal identity, the free will of thought, equitable access to technologies that increase human capacities, and protection against discrimination. That particular paragraph resonates strongly. Guido Girardi, the opposition senator, said the amendment to the Chilean constitution is the first law in the world on neuro rights, and it is the first step in a legislative ecosystem that will regulate artificial intelligence and neurotechnologies. The Chamber of Deputies said in a statement that Chile's law establishes that scientific and technological development must be at the service of people, and that it will be carried out with respect for life and physical and mental integrity. This is from a website called jurist.org. As usual, the links are in the doobries. But it got me thinking all sorts. That one that one paragraph, right? And I was thinking about dystopian sci-fi. It's either too late in the day to talk about this or too early in the morning. But it's started me thinking about dystopian sci-fi and how we mirrored our fears about this within, for example, film. And that's quite fascinating. There was a film years ago called Colossus, which was about the linking up of two supercomputers for the first time and what would happen. Now, it looks dated, but the concept's still real. The idea is still very real. It's what happens. What happens when you do it. And Colossus was out, I think, in the 70s. It's a good film, but it's about joining these two supercomputers together and what's likely to happen. So this is the kind of thing that's been on our mind for some time. But you get past Colossus, you get to Demon Seed, which is where a woman's trapped in her home by an artificial intelligence who inseminates her. And then, produces a baby in an external metal womb. So again, you've got these kinds of worries and concerns reflected in sci-fi since the 60s and the 70s. Go back a bit further, you've got Big Ants. It's all about nuclear. That was the fear then. And then we move on even further and it becomes much more about the manipulation of the mind. And some of you may recall Total Recall, which was based on a book by Philip K. Dick, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right? I'll be back. And in which he goes to have a holiday implanted in his head that he never had There's a thought. Right? So I can pop off. Where do you want to go? Let's go to Chile. See what they're up to. Okay, right, sit down. And then you come out after 20 minutes feeling like you've had a fortnight in Chile, right? Do you remember that? We can remember it for you wholesale. I think that's what the short story was called, right? And it goes wrong, doesn't it? It goes wrong. And it turns out that he's a spy called Douglas Quaid or some sort of bloke that's causing trouble all over the place. And it was full of various grotesqueries, but it was very much about that fear of the manipulation of the human mind. This is nothing new. But what Chile have done is opened up the arena and said, is this what we need to do? Now, law of unintended consequences is going to kick in. Because if we look at that paragraph, right, there's some bits there that I find a little bit worrying, but I'll leave you to give me your thoughts on it. So, the bill sets out to protect the right to mental privacy. Okay, right, that seems fairly straightforward. Personal identity. That is it me, or is that going to be open to something? Yeah. What does it mean by personal identity? We'd have to see, wouldn't we, in more depth. The free will of thought. Absolutely right. Free thought. Yep, absolutely. Equitable access to technologies. Very interesting use of the word equitable. Now, is this a time we're saying when equity is important? Absolutely right. Right? That's like saying everybody can have a toothbrush except you. What they're saying there is that it must be as accessible as a toothbrush, right? Or accessible as a pencil. That's how accessible it needs to be. So I can get behind that. Equitable access to technologies that increase human capacities. So the ability to do things better. So what they're really saying there is that equitable access to tools. If one wants to be a carpenter, one needs a hammer, one needs a chisel, one needs various things to be a carpenter. You must have equitable access in order to be a carpenter to those tools. So what they're actually saying, by talking about equitable access to technologies, they're saying equality of opportunity, not equity in terms of the nutter equity wallers in the dye industry that are causing all such troubles in the public sector and in the private sector. And then also protection against discrimination. Absolutely right. Now, protection against discrimination in that particular instance, I think, but don't know, means they are legally, in Chile, going to make social scoring, i.e., the Chinese social credit system, where actually it was very, very well explained in the dystopian Black Mirror series, where let's say that I'm walking down the street and I come across an individual, somebody who, Sarah Phillimore. I go, morning, Sarah. How are you? And Sarah turns to me and says, oh, get lost, fatty. No, she wouldn't say that. Sarah turns to me and says, oh, hello, Barry. How are you doing? You all right? And then I rate Sarah on a scale of 1 to 5. I give her stars according to how I felt she was that morning with me. So everything becomes about my subjective feelings. Sound familiar? Right, so here we go. Oh, that was very nice. Good to see you, Sarah. And we'll give her a 5. Oh, go away, fatty. Yeah, you get a 1 for that. Right? Until eventually you get to the point where, as in Black Mirrors, you don't get government help if you're less than 3 stars, and you can't get into restaurants if you're less than 2. And people end up living off grid, don't they? Do you remember how it goes? So this idea of social credit systems is going to become a thing, whether we like it or not. I think what Chile are doing here is saying social credit systems must end. The idea of a social credit system. This is the kind of foresight that we need to be seeing from the UK government, and we're not seeing it to a certain degree. I don't see any of this happening. So I'm intrigued to know what you think about this, because it's a very interesting topic right now, and one that I feel is intrinsically linked to freedom of thought and freedom of speech, and intrinsically linked to how we are going to control the revelations of neuroscience, because knowing what we do and why we do it may not always be a good thing. That doesn't mean to say we shouldn't know it. We should know it, but we need to make sure that it is not used against people in a discriminatory way. And by that I mean that it is not used by the powers that be, by the state, in any way to influence or get involved in people's lives. We need far less of that going forward. Far less. Right? And that's what we need to push for in this world we're heading to. But please let me know what you think. I thought it was a fascinating development. I hope you did too. Let me know in the comments or on Twitter. What's your thoughts? Where could this take us? Read that paragraph. Have a think. I'll see you later.